Welcome to the Environmental Humanities lessons. We will now look at the perhaps most significant, most popular expression of the environmental consciousness, and this is eco-disaster or eco-horror or eco-dystopian literary cultural texts. Our lesson today will look at ecological disaster in popular culture. Popular culture is an excellent way of bringing to the awareness of people what the future would be if contemporary ways of living, modernization, industrialization and nuclearization proceed unchecked. Eco-disaster in popular culture is usually depicted as eco-dystopias. Dystopia is the obverse or the reverse of utopia, as we know. Eco-disaster could be of various kinds. It could be due to natural causes, it could be due to human activities such as bacterial development within laboratories, industrialization and so on and so forth. The focus could be on the disaster itself, its progress and incremental damage. The entire film based on the process of disaster such as volcano, the day after tomorrow or 2012. It could be the fate of mankind after the world has ended as we know it. That is, it could be post-disaster representation as well. Eco-dystopia is a variant of the dystopian novel. And dystopia itself means a diseased, faulty or perhaps unfavorable place. Eco-disaster produces eco-dystopias marked by violence, lawlessness or totalitarianism. What does eco-disaster text as a norm usually depict? It depicts a depopulation narrative. The world has been consistently and continuously losing the human race. There are cities and houses and entire regions devoid of human population except a few straggling bunch of survivors here and there. Eco-dystopia and eco-disaster texts will depict damaged bodies, human, plant and animal, altered bodies, zombies, possessed creatures, human life which is not quite recognizably human anymore. They depict invasion and outbreak narratives. Depopulation narratives, if you look at any of the eco-disaster films like The Book of Eli or I Am Legend, consists of showing cities that have empty streets, malls that have no customers, public places that are shown of every form of human life. Depopulation narratives also show signs and symbols of human achievements are now signs of human collapse and failure. So the mall or the park or the seat of government, centers of power and centers of human civilization are now entirely devoid of people. And there are plenty of such texts within fiction as well. If you look at the image there from the Will Smith starrer I Am Legend based on an earlier novel, you can see what I'm talking about here. The man and his dog, the streets empty, the vehicles stuck, there's no fuel any longer. Abandoned vehicles is a standard theme in the depopulation narrative. But there are other interesting people who have been looking at this from an entirely different point of view. One is the photographer Edward Burtynsky, who photographs massive landfills of electronic circuits, toy parts and other urban wastes. The website has been put up for you on one of the screens. Burtynsky, and if you please recall here the arguments we have made about waste. Burtynsky photographs civilization's other side, waste. How much waste do we produce, accumulate? Burtynsky is interested not in the so-called grand spectacles of built environments. He is interested in spectacles of trash. As his work shows, the sublime landscape here, and please recall here what we have said about the picturesque and the sublime in the English romantic writers and their depictions of nature. The sublime landscape here is replaced by the sublimity of waste itself. So if Burtynsky is photographing mass landscapes, in very large landscapes of waste, it is the kind of odd twisting of the depopulation narrative. This is populated but with waste. There are no people left anymore, but there are piles and piles of waste. So eco-dystopia is focused on waste. But there's another kind of eco-dystopian popular text, and that is the outbreak narrative, as Priscilla Wald would call it. These are believed central to all eco-dystopian films these days, and that's the invasion, starting with Ridley Scott's cult text Alien, the Sigourney Weaver starrer, through the invasion of the body snatchers, the Andromeda strain and so on and so forth. The eco-disaster film speaks about the potential invasion of humanity and the earth by other life forms. This could be monsters from outer space or bacteria from outer space, which is the story of the Michael Crichton novel, The Andromeda Strain. Or they could be products of and life forms brought into being, brought into existence by the laboratories on Earth by humanity itself. In other words, humanity is infected and plagued by life forms that humanity itself has produced. This could lead to the collapse of the human body, the collapse of the human mind, familial and social structures, and eventually human civilization itself. So, techno-horror as they are sometimes called, natural life forms such as humans have to battle artificial life forms such as bacteria that are engineered in laboratories. Natural life forms have to battle hitherto unknown variant life forms such as the Ebola virus, and the cult book on the subject would be Richard Preston's The Hot Zone. In both cases, the human biomedical industrial laboratory has no antigen, which then has to be, of course, manufactured. In short, eco-dystopia envisages the end of humanity as we know it. Take a look at this rather horrific image from Ridley Scott's Alien, the alien life form emerging from the human. In these stories, humanity loses the power to reproduce, or humanity does reproduce, but what comes out of the human race or the human body is not human any longer, but an alien monster, where the alien monster has utilized the human body as a kind of incubation chamber from which it will grow. So the invasion narrative here, it has a little twist where the alien does not come from outer space and take over the planet. It comes in, infests and infects us, and uses human bodies in order to reproduce. But there's another kind of eco-dystopia, and that has more to do with recent developments since the late 1980s. And this is the eco-dystopian text about the future of life itself. It involves themes like xenotransplantation, cloning, stem cell and other technologies, hybridization of animal life forms with humans, among others. There are numerous examples: the I, Repo Men, Dirty Pretty Things, lovely Ishiguro novel Never Let Me Go, among others. In many of these texts, the evolution of life forms has been altered significantly by humanity. So the hybrid life forms that you now discover are not to be found in nature, but only in the laboratory. We have created life forms to suit us. So in the Mad Adam trilogy, Oryx and Crake, there is a description of a special species of chicken which has high growth rate. The chicken grows to full size in 2 weeks and has absolutely nothing that cannot be eaten. What this means is we have started producing life forms to suit our purposes. This suggests that there is no longer any distinction between nature and culture, because life as we know it is what we have made of it. This will become complicated in novels like Never Let Me Go, where as we create life, we create human life as well. So texts about cloning such as Never Let Me Go ask fundamental questions. Where is the original human now, since the human has a clone? Does the human clone then have all the human rights as a regular human? Do clones exist to serve the human race? This means we have to wonder and puzzle over the ethics of cloning, not because the technology is bad, but because we are perhaps producing a race of cloned creatures, cloned life that exists only to serve us. Let's recap by way of a conclusion. What does eco-dystopia have to do with popular culture? Well, popular culture is the one domain in which the vision of ecological disaster, the end of the world and the apocalypse has been most documented. It could take the form of outbreak narratives, which might have invasion from outer space by monsters. It could be invasion from within, where life forms engineered in laboratories by humans have broken out and begun to infect. It might be about natural disasters. It could be about disasters brought on by industrial technology gone berserk. Popular culture's job, as far as we are concerned in the environmental humanities, is to bring to our senses, our attention, the fact that most of what we do by way of development, policies that are about modernization, might have serious ecological consequences. Instead of having dry as dust texts that talk about the possible consequences, a dramatic, perhaps exaggerated eco-dystopian film might bring home the fact that the environmental consciousness that we need is already delayed, and the environment protection acts that we need to put in place is perhaps already delayed. Popular culture becomes a central mechanism through which traditional examinations of texts such as ecofeminism or eco-criticism are given a new spin. The dramatization, the visual effects, the imagery all constitute a heightening of eco-horror that brings home to us the fact that we live in a very fragile environment. Thank you.